Well, if you put your money on the Trump-Musk friendship lasting fewer than 6 months, congratulations! You win! Which you can do with today's sponsor, DraftKings. I'm just kidding. We are absolutely not sponsored by DraftKings, but, you know, I'm just saying. Now, we knew something was off when Musk showed up to his Oval Office going away party with a black eye. But the fight officially started when Musk called Trump's, I hate to say this, one big beautiful budget bill, quote, a pork-filled abomination. And by the end of the day, Musk claimed that Trump was in the Jeffrey Epstein files, which didn't everyone already know? But at any rate, Trump threatened to cancel all of Musk's government contracts, and then all hell broke loose. Now, setting aside how potentially dangerous this is for the world's most unstable superpower, I have to admit this day was actually pretty great. As Jay Willis said, quote, "It was the most fun day we've had on the internet since Trump got COVID." Some said the spat was like illegal alien versus sex predator, and it left Kanye feeling bereft, saying, "Bros, no, we love you both so much." And of course, Kanye speaks for everyone. Some right-wing influencers suggested that Trump should be impeached, and Musk agreed, and Musk got trolled by the Polish foreign minister, quote, "See, big man, politics is harder than you thought." Ukraine chimed in with a meme trolling Trump, quote, "Zelensky has promised to bring peace between Musk and Trump within 24 hours. And the mother of one of Musk's children, Ashley St. Clair, tweeted, quote, "Hey, real Donald Trump, let me know if you need any breakup advice." But the best summary came from Anna Hughes. "This is like Drake and Kendrick, but they're both Drake." Now, I've just spent 5 months analyzing all of Donald Trump's unconstitutional acts, and oh, by the way, we still don't know who the administrator of Doge is, and Trump still has 3.5 years left on his second term. In general, I am pretty tired, so let me have this. And is this an excuse to engage in some much-needed schadenfreude? Yes, but I promise there is a legal angle to all of this. Now that Musk has burned Trump harder than a Tesla battery recall, Trump is poised to retaliate. So today we're going to break down the legal consequences of the Trump-Musk divorce. And spoiler alert, this may be the greatest leopards eating faces moment of all time. But first, we must engage in some schadenfreude. Now, although it may seem like a bromance written in the stars, it's worth remembering how short-lived the Trump-Musk relationship really was. Musk didn't endorse Trump until July of 2024. He then manipulated Twitter to promote the campaign and poured about $300 million into the presidential race in Trump's favor. And in fact, the Trump campaign outsourced its ground game to Musk. And instead of traditional outreach, he offered money to canvassers and then allegedly failed to pay them. He flirted with running illegal lotteries by paying voters $1 million to sign petitions and listen to him speak. And it seemed to have worked. Musk started Doge, and Trump let him take a wrecking ball to the civil service, terminating thousands of employees and illegally withholding billions of funds. He sat in on cabinet meetings, and the acting U.S. attorney for D.C. threatened to jail anyone who crossed Doge employees. The Attorney General and the FBI started a terrorism task force to prosecute people who vandalized Teslas, and the federal agencies that were investigating Musk's companies for breaking the law conveniently stopped investigating. And Trump even turned the White House lawn into a car lot and encouraged everyone to buy Teslas. So everything was going great, except for a couple of things. Trump's staff apparently hated Musk and the influence he had over the president, and Musk forgot the absolute #1 universal rule when dealing with Donald Trump, that there's basically no one Trump won't betray if it serves his personal interests, except for Vladimir Putin. So it seems that Musk's official downfall started in April, when he failed to deliver on his promise to buy Republicans a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. The Democratic candidate won, and Musk started fading into the background. And of course, Musk completely 100% failed on his promise to remove $2 trillion from the federal budget. Musk apparently grew frustrated with Trump's tariffs, and when Musk announced that he was leaving Doge, Trump planned an Oval Office news conference to say farewell. But behind the scenes, hostilities seemed to be brewing. Musk was furious about Trump's decision to withdraw the nomination of Jared Isaacman, a Musk ally, to run NASA, and shortly before Musk's send-off, a Trump aide named Sergio Gore gave Trump a file showing that Isaacman made donations to Democrats. Insiders say Gore was angry that Musk criticized his management of the White House Personnel Office, and less than a week later, Musk went nuclear on Trump. The day started with a Trump news conference with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Trump kicked off the meeting with his typical flair, expressing sympathy for some of the worst people in history. When Trump mused about how D-Day was a sad day for the Germans, Merz cut in, quote,
"This was the liberation of my country from Nazi dictatorship."
But by the time Merz was finished explaining that Nazis were the bad guys, Trump's mind had moved on to other things, like Elon Musk taking credit for the election and not liking his big, beautiful bill. But Musk did not take this lying down. He tweeted, quote, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election, Dems would control the House, and the Republicans would be 51-59 in the Senate." And Musk accused Trump of, quote, "such ingratitude." Musk pointed out that the Congressional Budget Office said Trump's budget bill would increase the deficit. He started digging up Trump's old tweets about the deficit, some from as far back as 2012, when Trump said no member of Congress should be reelected if their federal budget isn't balanced. And Musk spent the rest of the day attacking the budget bill, calling it a disgusting and pork-filled abomination. He criticized the $2 to $5 trillion debt impact and cuts to electric vehicle incentives. He said, quote, keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill even though no oil and gas subsidies are touched. Very unfair. But ditch the mountain of disgusting pork in the bill. In the entire history of civilization, there has never been legislation that both big and beautiful. Everyone knows this. Either you get a big and ugly bill or a slim and beautiful bill. Slim and beautiful is the way. And Trump fired back on Truth Social, posting that, quote, Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. After Trump suggested that Elon was wearing thin, Musk tweeted that it was, quote, such an obvious lie, but Musk would later delete that tweet after he cooled off. Trump said that Musk knew what was in the budget bill and was just bitter about the EV credit ending. He claimed that Musk now has Trump derangement syndrome.
I'll tell you, he's not the first. People leave my administration and they love us. And then at some point they miss it so badly, and some of them embrace it and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome.
After the news conference, Musk started responding to Trump in real time on Twitter. First, he denied ever seeing the bill, quote, false, this bill was never shown to me even once and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could ever read it. Also, why a bill would be shown to Elon is beyond me. It's sort of nuts that Musk, who is not a member of Congress or a member of Trump's cabinet, thought he was entitled to review the full bill, which is hundreds of pages long, and then presumably have a veto power over things that he doesn't like. But this underscores the danger of the world's richest person buying the presidency. And just to emphasize that Musk believes the Republican literally owes him, he polled his followers on whether he should start his own third party. Musk didn't let up. He tweeted that the budget bill should be called, quote, the big ugly bill. So Musk tweeted that lawmakers should side with him in the budget bill fight because, quote, Trump has 3.5 years left as president. I will be around for 40 plus years. And in response, Trump threatened to revoke federal contracts for Tesla, SpaceX, and Starlink. Quote, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Musk dared Trump to cancel SpaceX contract, quote, go ahead, make my day. Musk then threw down the gauntlet by claiming Trump was in the Jeffrey Epstein files, which didn't everyone already know already? Like, yeah, he's in there. But he said, quote, time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Again, this is sort of common knowledge. And of course, every time I point that out, people complain that I don't point out that other people are in the Epstein files. The Clintons, Bill Clinton is in the Epstein files too. But you know, Donald Trump is the current president, so it sort of makes it more newsworthy, I would think. But Trump responded by touting the so-called benefits of this bill. Quote, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done this months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. Musk then threatened to decommission SpaceX Dragon spacecraft immediately. The Dragon shuttles astronauts to and from the International Space Station, but Musk deleted this tweet over the weekend. But Musk continued to attack Trump's economic policies. He added that Trump's tariffs would cause a recession. Now, this is not a new prediction. During the debate, Kamala Harris said, quote, 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. So there was nothing special about Musk's prognostications about the economic impact of Trump's policies. Of course, it doesn't make Musk look good that he ignored this information before the election. And in the same vein, he did not seem to care about Trump's association with Jeffrey Epstein until he was mad about his waning influence on the president. But Musk tweeted a video of Trump partying with Epstein. And as I said, this wasn't new information. However, Musk later removed the tweet. But things on the internet are forever, and the world knows that he tweeted it. But I guess by deleting it, the message to Trump is that he was backing down. And that's exactly what happened after a rando Twitter user told Musk to cool off. He responded, quote, good advice. Okay, we don't commission Dragon. But anyway, by then Musk was already working his way back into Trump's good graces. Billionaire Trump, as Bill Ackman, encouraged him to make up. And meanwhile, Trump was getting help from one of Epstein's lawyers. David Schoen, Epstein's defense attorney, said that he asked his client about Trump, and Epstein said, quote, he had no information to hurt President Trump. And in fact, he said he specifically asked Epstein about that. Now, separately, there are some huge issues with Schoen's claim. First, he's asking people to rely on the statements of a disgraced sex offender to clear Trump. Second, his discourse may have violated the attorney-client privilege because the privilege generally protects confidential communications between a lawyer and their client, including after that client's death. So unless there is a clear waiver, that's a pretty clear violation of attorney-client privilege. But anyway, by Friday night, both men were backing down, and the White House tweeted a clip of the president saying he wishes Musk well, and Musk replied, quote, Likewise. And on Saturday, Musk started deleting all of his personal criticisms of Trump, as well as the Epstein allegations. Now, Musk is not accustomed to being pushed around, but Trump has the entire federal government at his disposal, and he has already weaponized it in unprecedented and unconstitutional ways. So it really seems like he could make life incredibly miserable for Elon Musk. How? Well, let's start with the most dramatic action that Trump could take. He might just kick him out of the country. Now, in a pre-Trump world, that would be completely off the table. But we live in a post-Trump world, and Trump advisor Steve Bannon suggested that Trump investigate Musk's immigration status and deport him. Quote, "I am of the strong belief that Musk is an illegal alien and should be deported from the country immediately." Now, could Trump deport Musk to South Africa, send him to Sikot, or exile him to Corsica? Well, under the law, as it existed prior to January 21st, 2025, no, absolutely not. But Trump's attacks on the rule of law have really changed the game. Now, we've made several videos explaining how the Trump administration is deporting people without due process. The case against Colombian grad student Mahmoud Khalil is instructive. The administration claims that the Immigration and Nationality Act gives Trump the right to deport non-citizens and green card holders by labeling them as hostile to U.S. foreign policy interests. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio asserted that Khalil's pro-Palestinian activism harmed U.S. foreign policy. And he also claimed that Khalil hid his connections to groups like the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, and that these omissions constituted fraud. Now, as we've talked about, the evidence against Khalil is so thin that an immigration judge ruled that he was likely to win his case. The judge cited the only decision interpreting that section of the INA, which happened to be written by Trump's late sister, Judge Marianne Trump Barry. She had concluded that the law was unconstitutionally vague and that it violated the First Amendment. But guess what? That hasn't stopped Trump before, and it might not stop him in this case either. Now, as for Musk's legal status, all we know is that he became a U.S. citizen in 2002 through the naturalization process after holding permanent residency for several years. This means that somewhat unlike Mr. Khalil, Musk has full constitutional protections and cannot be deported under immigration law, except under some extremely rare circumstances. However, there are exceptions, and this administration is willing to stretch the truth to make them work. If someone obtains citizenship through fraud, the government might revoke their citizenship. This process is known as denaturalization. Fraud includes lying or concealing material facts during the naturalization process. And if the government denaturalized Musk, then he could be legally deported. So here's how that might play out. Trump would claim that Musk, like Khalil, misrepresented key facts on his green card application, potentially opening the door to similar accusations of immigration fraud. And Musk's immigration status before he was naturalized is unclear. In 2013, his brother Kimball said that when they came to the US, the brothers were illegal immigrants. Snopes looked into the claim but couldn't find enough evidence, and they concluded that his status remains an open question. And the brothers may have been on student visas, but at one point, both had dropped out of school and neither had a job. And if that was the situation under the law, maybe they could have been deported, but they would have had to have gone through the removal proceedings first, because of the rule of law and all that. But Trump could look at all this the way that Steve Bannon does and conclude that Musk committed fraud. I mean, consider how the Trump administration has already weaponized spurious allegations of anti-Semitism to justify other deportations. If Trump feels like using the same strategy on Musk, he probably has plenty of ammunition. Musk has promoted a conspiracy theory that Jewish people were engineered for a white genocide. He reinstated the Twitter accounts of many neo-Nazis. He threw up a Nazi salute during a Trump rally at the Capital One Arena. Musk criticized aid to Ukraine and indicated some support for pro-Palestinian protests. And of course, all of that is First Amendment protected activity, but that hasn't stopped this administration at all so far. And the Trump administration could argue that Musk's SpaceX and Starlink operations pose national security risks if Musk can't be trusted to align with American interests. Now, all of that is bad, but that's why you have a constitution and why you should never cheer even the people that you like being in power conducting unconstitutional acts. And speaking of which, Trump has also claimed sweeping authority to label someone an international gang member and deport them without due process. And there's no reason he couldn't apply that same logic to Elon Musk. This is, of course, what happened to Kilmore Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man that Trump deported despite a judge finding he faced credible threats from gangs in his home country. And although Abrego Garcia missed the one-year asylum filing deadline, an immigration judge granted him a withholding of removal, a protection that barred deportation to El Salvador due to the clear danger to his life. But notwithstanding, ICE agents arrested and deported Abrego Garcia anyway, claiming without evidence that he was a member of a gang. And the removal was carried out without a warrant, and ICE later admitted it had received but ignored the judge's 2019 order. The government never formally charged Abrego Garcia with being a gang member, so he never had an opportunity to challenge the government's claims. And a federal court described Abrego Garcia's deportation as a clear violation of due process that shocks the conscience. And his legal team is now seeking sanctions. And the subject of one of our future videos, the government has now fired back by charging Abrego Garcia with human trafficking because he drove people to a work site. Now, if the Trump administration can label someone as a gang member or a terrorist and then just simply deport them without due process, as they did with Abrego Garcia, They can do it to anyone, including Elon Musk. And that might sound absurd. Musk is obviously not a member of Trenderagua or MS-13. But look at what we're dealing with now. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, literally fabricated evidence against Garcia, claiming that he had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. The image he shared on social media was fake, but during an April 29th ABC News interview, he doubled down saying, quote, he had MS-13 on his knuckles. And reporter Terry Moran noted the letters were photoshopped, but Trump insisted the tattoo was real.
I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say. There's tattoos.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that.
But that's the thing about due process. If the government makes accusations against you, it's due process that allows you to fight those accusations. And yes, so far they have limited their accusations to marginalized people with dubious immigration status. But if you remove due process from any particular category of people, it can be used against anyone. Because there's simply no way to fight back if they're allowed to do it. Now, we are supposed to have a government that follows the law, but in less than 150 days, President Trump has decimated the legal norms that would normally protect Musk from an illegal denaturalization and deportation process. So it's all fun and games until the leopards eat your face. Now, if you publicly attack this president, you're probably going to want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, let my law firm, the Eagle Team, help. If you've got in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you've got a data breach letter saying your information might have been leaked, or dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. By the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. And he might come after Musk's companies next. As we've explained several times, the Constitution does not give the president broad power to block congressionally appropriated funds. The Impoundment Control Act and the Constitution prohibits the president from unilaterally refusing to spend money that Congress has directed the executive branch to spend. Under the act, if the president wants to withhold funds for any reason, they must notify Congress in writing through a rescission or deferral proposal. Then Congress must approve the rescission for it to take effect. Otherwise, the funds must be released and spent according to the law. Because, you know, it's the law. And here, Congress has appropriated funds for SpaceX through NASA and the Department of Defense. Traditionally, this means that Trump cannot legally refuse to spend that money just because he's feuding with Elon Musk unless Congress gives him the green light. Case closed? No, because Trump has illegally withheld funds, often with Musk's help so far. As head of Doge, Musk led aggressive government cutbacks, halting payments for state health departments, slashing cancer research programs, eliminating a consumer protection agency, and freezing USAID funds, all without congressional approval. And Musk gleefully supported Trump's assertion that the president had authority to override congressional budget laws. And this was all fun and games when it was happening to other people, but now Trump can turn it all back on Musk himself. You know, unless the judiciary steps in and enforces the law and prevents that from happening, but even that takes time and a lot of stuff can go wrong in the interim. And of course, Musk can argue that the impoundment, if it happens, is clearly retaliatory, and courts have consistently held that the government may not withhold benefits or contracts in retaliation for protected political speech, but Musk and SpaceX would have to sue the government, and Trump would obviously fight that. But the fun thing about this potential lawsuit would be Musk having to cite cases involving the same agencies and organizations that Musk dismantled at Doge. For example, courts have now ruled that Doge's actions at agencies like the U.S. Institute of Peace were illegal, but it's also likely that Trump could pursue more subtle forms of retaliation that wouldn't technically violate the ICA. He could change contract priorities, delay new contracts, or direct federal agencies to reassess contracts involving Musk companies. Now, Musk used his position and influence with Trump to stop agencies like the NLRB and the SEC from investigating his businesses, but don't be surprised if Trump orders federal agencies to ramp up regulatory scrutiny of Tesla and SpaceX. Because what the president giveth, the president can taketh away. And Musk companies stood to reap huge rewards by allying with Trump. SpaceX is one of the government's biggest contractors. And being buddies with Trump gave Musk the ability to put his thumb on the scale against his competitors like Boeing, siphon off more government money into his own pockets. And look, that was problematic in its own right. But here's the thing about that gamble. It only works as long as Trump doesn't betray you. And it also seems like Tesla is a company with a positive pro-environmental mission, but it seems that Musk has alienated every conceivable customer and painted Tesla into a corner. The Republican Party is dedicated to fossil fuels and opposed to all forms of green energy. Trumpers don't want Teslas, and people who don't like Trump will never ever buy a Tesla. But on top of that, if Trump makes good on his threat to cut off SpaceX, that company could meet a similar fate. Though for now, SpaceX is probably in a slightly better position than Tesla because the US is dependent on the company for its orbit launch service, and there isn't an alternative that can replace SpaceX on a short or even medium-term notice, which is why some right-wing commentators are calling for Trump to nationalize SpaceX. So live by the Trump sword and die by the Trump sword. But please, won't someone think of the children? And by children, I mean the Musk-aligned Doge employees. Now, the Trump administration is now hiring many of the Doge employees for permanent government positions, like this guy, Thomas Fugate, a 22-year-old with no experience who is now in charge of terrorism prevention. I feel safer already. But it appears that all of them are worried about getting fired. The Wall Street Journal said, quote, Doge-affiliated staff, some of whom were responsible for pushing out thousands of federal workers, texted one another on Thursday about whether they would be fired next. Now, most of these people were hired because they were connected to Musk, and you have to wonder where their loyalties lie. But in years past, personal loyalty to the president wasn't a great reason to hire or fire a bureaucratic technocrat. So can these Doge bros really be fired over the Trump-Musk grudge match? Well, yeah, because Trump and Musk, following the blueprint outlined in Project 2025, successfully undermined merit-based civil service protections, or at least a lot of them. Now, the whole point of those protections was to ensure that public employees were hired, promoted, and retained based on merit, not political loyalty. And those protections created a nonpartisan federal workforce that could serve the public interest regardless of which political party was in power. But a lot of that following Project 2025 was successfully cast aside or imperiled. And all this in March led French Senator Claude Malhuret to explain our situation as, quote, Washington has become the court of Nero, an incendiary emperor, submissive courtiers, and a jester high on ketamine in charge of purging the civil service. This is a tragedy for the free world, but it is first and foremost a tragedy for the United States. Yes, these actions caused the French to dunk on us. The French! So yeah, if you are an employee or associated with Doge, I would start brushing up on your resume. So can Trump weaponize the federal government to punish Elon Musk and those that are associated with him? Yeah, the only question is whether it would hold up in court. But at least maybe then Musk would finally understand why the rule of law with independent judges is worth keeping around. But maybe because of the immense power that the federal government has legitimately or illegitimately, Musk is now making amends for his disloyalty. He replied to a post from Vice President J.D. Vance about how the president was handling the situation in Los Angeles. Musk also posted a screenshot from Truth Social from Trump criticizing California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. And he wrote cool to a video of Vance speaking in an interview where he says he thinks, quote, if Elon chills out a little bit, everything will be fine. So it seems like after taking the weekend off and thinking about the fate of SpaceX and Tesla, Musk decided to get back on board the Trump train. But until then, he might want to scrape his online presence, especially his personal information, because the government may use that against him. Luckily, he can do that with the help of today's sponsor, Incogni, because Incogni removes your personal data from online data brokers by reaching out directly and forcing them to take your personal info down. If these data brokers resist, Incogni will take care of that too, because Incogni fights back. Incogni also just launched a new feature called Custom Removals for subscribers to their unlimited plan that I think is really great. It allows you to flag an unlimited number of sites where your data is exposed, and you can even have Incogni's privacy experts review and tackle the most uncooperative data brokers and people search sites. These data brokers are the reason why in the US you can search your name and find a bunch of websites that will give anyone your home address, phone number, and extensive history. It's shocking just how easy it is to find all this information. And also might be why you're getting so many spam calls lately, or even how someone might steal your identity. But Incogni is a great way to take back control of your data, increase your online privacy, and cut down on those annoying scam calls and emails that used to flood my voicemail and inbox. Now, I've been using Incogni for years. In that time, you can see I've been on hundreds of lists, some of which had a high sensitivity score, meaning the broker had tons of data on me. Luckily, Incogni has completed hundreds of takedowns for me over the years and is processing dozens of others. If I were to try this myself, it would take weeks. So thank you, Incogni, for saving me the time and adding me to over 40 suppression lists. And Incogni will continue to conduct ongoing removals because even if the broker removes your data once, they can collect it again. But Incogni makes sure that your personal information stays off the market for good. So if online privacy is important to you, give Incogni a try. If you click on the link on screen or down below, you can try Incogni risk-free for 30 days and get a full refund if you're not into it. And if you do decide to keep it, you'll still get the exclusive 60% off discount, so long as you use my link or the code LegalEagle, all one word, at checkout. So after you sign up for Incogni, click over here for more LegalEagle, or I'll see you in court.